For those of you who want to read along, we're going to be discussing chapter 9, text 31. Continuing where we left off that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You have a good memory, you can follow along. Otherwise, you can look on your little handheld device that has the verse, 9.31. Chipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shat chantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace, O son of Kunti. Declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. And Srila Prabhupada's purport. This should not be misunderstood. In the 7th chapter, the Lord says that one who is engaged in mischievous activities cannot become a devotee of the Lord. One who is not a devotee of the Lord has no good qualification whatsoever. The question remains then, how can a person engage in abominable activities, even by accident or by intention, be a pure devotee? This question may justly be raised. The miscreants, as stated in the 7th chapter, who never come to the devotional service of the Lord have no good qualification, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Generally, a devotee who is engaged in 9 kinds of devotional activities is engaged in the process of cleansing all material contamination from the heart. He puts the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, and all sinful contaminations are naturally washed away. Continuous thinking of the Supreme Lord makes him pure by nature. According to the Vedas, there is a certain regulation that if one falls down from his exalted position, he has to undergo certain ritualistic processes to purify himself. But here there's no such condition, because the purifying process is already there in the heart of the devotee due to his remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare should be continued without stoppage. This will protect a devotee from all accidental fall downs. He will thus remain perpetually free from all material contamination. This is a continuation and almost a conclusion of a whole flow of messages prior to this one. The starting point, one way to think of the starting point is this Yad Karoshi Yadasnasi Yad Jahosi Dadasi Yad verse. The teaching, it's karma yoga, where whatever it is that you do, whatever charity, whatever anything, do that, make that as an offering unto me. Karma yoga, one way to distinguish between karma yoga and bhakti yoga is, in karma yoga, the offering comes after the activity. I don't want entanglement in the activity because I know there's karma involved in the activity. When it's not offered, so I'll offer it, the fruit or the result, to Krishna. Whereas bhakti is, it's the starting point is, my life is, and my everything is for Krishna, and so the activity is already offered to Krishna. But supposing one isn't at that stage yet of consciousness or purified state of mind, because there's mixture of modes of nature and mixtures of attachments to the mood of being the enjoyer, and I'm trying to free myself from that mood of being the enjoyer, so I do this offering of the results to Krishna. There is the consequence of that is knowledge and detachment awaken. From that detached work, knowledge arises, or the covering is removed, and thus knowledge arises. The covering is the enjoyer mood, enjoyer of the fruits mood, the fruit of passion. I do because I get something. Passion. So if the something goes to Krishna, then that mode of passion subsides and mode of goodness becomes more prevalent. Knowledge awakens in that mode of goodness situation, and the mind is now more purified. When the mind is more purified, something happens. That is, the continuous remembrance of Krishna becomes more natural. And one who is in that position of continuous remembrance, that's very attractive to Krishna. Krishna is very pleased by that person. Or when someone is always thinking of him, he's always thinking of that someone. It has everything to do with an earlier verse. Yayatamam prapadyante tangstadaiva bhajamyam. Then comes this so one who works that way, there's a consequence. They become dear to Krishna. And then he takes that they become dear to me concept and amplifies it by saying, I'm equal to everyone, but I'm partial to my devotee. He's kind to everyone. He's kind to everyone. But he's kind. He reciprocates the kindness that the devotee shows for him, or the attachment for him that the devotee shows. He becomes attached to them. Or the commentary says, he becomes the devotee, the devotee of his devotee. He gives himself to his devotee. And then comes the next verse, the one before this one, which is, even if he does something really bad. Prabhupada's text says, occasionally, or accidentally, or circumstantially, something happens, and that remembrance gets covered and something foolish happens. And then there's some repentance, some regret. And that repentance or regret is described, I'm going to read to you some commentary. It's Vaishnava purification. What the devotee doesn't do is think, oh, I'm a devotee, so it's okay if I do bad stuff because I'm a devotee. That's abusive, or it's offensive. Extending on the strength of chanting is an offense. I'll just go and chant and make myself clean and continue to do bad stuff because I'll just chant and I'll make myself clean. But that's not okay. That would be a misunderstanding of what Krishna is saying. So at this verse, the emphasis goes to that bhajate mam ananya bhak. That's from the previous verse. Ananya means undivided or no other. Anya means other. And ananya means no other. They have no other shelter but me. So one who has no other shelter but me, and there's some occasional something that happens that's untoward, that person, mantavya, I consider saintly. And then this verse, he's admonishing, don't think otherwise. And how is it that he's considered saintly? Because he's thinking of me, and that's the means of purification. The means of purification of his thinking of me means I think of him. And because I am the supreme pure, I purify. Kshipram bhavati dharmatma. I get in there and correct the situation. Why do I get in there and correct the situation? Because he's thinking of me. And I am the Supreme Pure. Let me read. The way that the audiences of Baladev Vidyabhusan and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they're the two primary acharyas. There are many, of course, that comments on Bhagavad Gita, but these two are primary sources. Prabhupada dedicates his Bhagavad Gita commentary to Baladev. And there's reasons, but I won't go into those reasons. So Prabhupada is speaking the same points to a different audience than they were speaking to. But the principles don't change if the audience changes. But the way that you express may change. Let me read what Baladev writes, and then Vishwanath writes. It's interesting. That's why I want to read it. So the translation is the same. Then there's a verse that's quoted from the Katha Upanishad. That's Shruti Shastra. That's very strong evidence. And the Katha Upanishad says, he who has not given up evil deeds, who is not peaceful or in control of the senses or mind, cannot attain the Lord, even through knowledge. Katha Upanishad. So that's then referring to that verse. A person may doubt. He's taking on the doubting, the Purva Paksha. The person that may say, wait a minute, here's this verse from the Upanishad, so how can you make this statement? How can you then consider them proper if scriptures condemn such sinful persons? Response. This statement you have quoted concerns persons whose very nature is sinful. But the person who exclusively worships me, this Ananya Bhak from the previous verse, is purified of his incidental sinful acts by me, the Lord of all beings, who am most purifying, because I hold that devotee in my mind, because they hold him in their mind. Yayatama prapadyante. And that's the purifying agent for that person that has done something wrong. He then very quickly becomes steady in proper conduct. Dharmatma. Here's key. Continually repenting his previous acts, he attains complete cessation of all those sinful acts which are obstacles to remembering me. How does he overcome them? Because Krishna cleanses it. He restores the person to the rightful position. Why does he do that? That's the previous verse. They're very dear to me. I hold them very dear to me. Why? Because they're devoted to me in a very special, consistent, strong determination way. Doubt. Oh, the smartest will not consider such a person proper. He has not performed atonement rites. What's a smarter person? It's a person who doesn't, they live by the rules. The essence of the rules is not what they live by. They live by the rules. And the rules are everything, and you follow the rules, and that's it. That's a smarter person. Now, there's nothing we should follow rules. But the purpose of rules is to reach an essence, but if the essence isn't captured, there's a teaching by Rupa Goswami. Some of you probably know it because it's in Nectar of Instruction. One of the causes, Shadbir Bhaktir Vinashati, one of the things that Vinashati, that destroys bhakti, is not following rules or following rules without understanding the purpose behind them. Following rules without understanding the purpose behind them destroys bhakti. Because bhakti is not just rules. There's rules. But it's not just rules. There's a purpose behind the rules. So that's what is being spoken of here. Controlled by attraction to his devotee, the Lord then replies with slight anger, "O son of Kunti, going to that assembly of smartas declare, boom, my exclusive devotee, if he commits sinful acts out of negligence, is not destroyed. He does not become separated from me and attain misfortune. Rather, purified by me, who am the most purifying, he shines with qualification to attain me." And then you can say, "O son of Kunti," the following, a verse from Canto 11, Chapter 5. This is Narada to Vasudeva in Dwarka. Narada saying, "One who has thus given up all other engagements and has taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is very dear to the Lord. Indeed, if such a surrendered soul accidentally commits some sinful activity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated within everyone's heart, immediately takes away the reaction of such sin," which is the same thing that's being said here. And he becomes like a janitor or a cleansing agent. He makes the place clean. Even if what was said relates to the Samarta atonement, which is meant for those following Samarta rules, persons other than my exclusive devotees. But remembrance of me is the most powerful atonement. Now, remembrance of Krishna. Those of you that like to read Prabhupada's books, you know that there's, in Nectar Devotion, there's some regulations. Some do, some do not. 64 items and 64 do not. And then at the end, Rupa Goswami quotes a verse. It says, the purpose of all these rules is to remember Krishna. That's the purpose. That's the underlying purpose. The one who has remembrance of me, if there's an infraction in the rule, I'll take charge of that. Because they've reached the essence. Going back, it's not, okay, I just have to think of Krishna and do dirty stuff, and it's okay because I'm thinking of Krishna. That's not the meaning. Because they have regret for that mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. He says that earlier in Bhagavad Gita. Every activity was covered with some type of fault. Every activity is covered with some type of fault. Jiva Goswami writes like that. With there's the conditioned soul has defect and make mistakes, and even perfected soul. But it's a different kind of mistake. It's a mistake that gets corrected by Krishna pronto. I was just listening to a recording of a class in Bombay. Prabhupada is speaking on Canto 3, Chapter 25. And he couldn't remember something. King Anga was the father of Prithu Maharaj, and he was forgetting the name King Anga. So what is his name? Oh, King Anga. Okay, so Jayadvaita Maharaj, on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada, is recorded in South Africa, in Durban, asked, how should a disciple process it when the spiritual master can't remember a verse or can't remember a name or some detail? How should a disciple process that? Prabhupada's answer: the spiritual master is not super soul; he's not omniscient, and super soul gives remembrance where remembrance is required. So he is surrendered to super soul, and super soul will correct. But don't think that, that perfection, this is the topic, means there's didactic memory. No one may have it, like Bhaktisiddhanta, didactic memory, but one may not. Sometimes Prabhupada said, I'm getting old, I can't remember. It's just one of those things that goes with age. But, and on the other hand, his recalling of verses was just amazing. Quite extraordinary. But if there isn't remembrance, if there's some apparent mistake, it's not, we don't look at things through that lens. We look at things through the lens as Krishna looks at things. Here's a person who is always thinking of me with devotion. And not just occasionally, but always thinking of me with devotion. They're attached to me. So they're in my thoughts. And I make the correction. I'm in their heart and they're in my heart. I make the correction. Here's Vishwanath's commentary. There's some similarities but some differences. So the verse very quickly becomes righteous, even if he does some abominable thing. Doubt. How can you accept the worship of such a sinful person? How can you eat the food and drink offered by the heart, contaminated with lust and anger? Answer. Very quickly he becomes righteous. The present tense is used and not the future to express the fact that having committed sin, by remembering the Lord he has become repentant and thus very quickly becomes righteous. Oh, how unfortunate I am. There's no one as low as I, bringing bad name to the devotees. Repeatedly he feels completely disgusted with his actions. Or, in the use of the present tense, it can indicate that in the future he will develop righteousness fully, but even right now it exists in a subtle form. After taking medicine, though the destructive effect of fever or poison remained for some time, it is not considered to be a serious condition. Thus, with the entrance of bhakti in his mind, his sinful actions are not taken seriously, and the traces of sin, such as lust and anger, should be considered insignificant, like the biting of a toothless snake. Thus, he attains complete cessation of lust and anger permanently. Shashvat. Doubt. If he eventually becomes righteous, there would be no argument. However, if the devotee is sinful right up until his death, what is his position? Good question. Answer. The Lord, affectionate to his devotees, then speaks loudly with a little anger. O son of Kunti, my devotee is not destroyed. At the time of death, he does not fall to a lower position. Oh? But arguers with harsh tongues will not respect this. Krishna then encourages the worried, lamenting Arjuna, O Kaunteya, going to the squabbling assembly with a tumultuous sound of drums. Throw your hand in the air. You should fearlessly declare this. Declare what? Declare that my devotee, the devotee of the Supreme Lord, although committing sin, does not perish, but rather reaches success. Because the success is always thinking of Krishna. Arguments defeated, pride deflated, they should undoubtedly respect you as a guru. This is Sridhar Swami's explanation. So then why does Krishna ask Arjuna to declare it? The reason is explained. Being affectionate to my devotee and not tolerating even a slight degradation of my devotee I will under all circumstances uphold the declaration made by my devotee, whereas I can break my own promise and accept criticism about myself, just as in breaking my own promise in fighting with Bhishma. I fulfilled Bhishma's promise. Thus, hearing a declaration from my mouth, the materialistic disputers will laugh, but they will accept Arjuna's declaration as if it were written on stone. Therefore, I have asked Arjuna to make the declaration. And thus, conclusion, one should not accept the statements of the falsely intelligent persons who, after hearing about Ananya Bhakti, even of the greatest sinner, think that this declaration is made by the pure devotee cannot apply in cases where attachment to wife and children, sinful act, lamentation, illusion, lust, anger, and other despicable qualities manifest. This is chapter 9, called The Most Confidential Knowledge, and the most confidential knowledge means about bhakti, and it's about Ananya Bhakti, undivided devotion, and Krishna holds such a person very dear. Once again, it's not, okay, this is great, I can carry on in mediocre and, mixed, pure, impure activities, and it's just fine because I'm a devotee. So that's not it. That's a misunderstanding, and one who thinks that way it's offensive way of thinking. Wrong, and it's offensive. That's why these statements, Krishna is raising his voice with a little irritation. Raise your arms, declare it boldly. You will not be degraded. Because the purification is remembrance, like manmana. And how is one going to be consistently manmana? It's by attachment. You think of that which you're attached to. The miser thinks of his money. And somebody that's attached to something thinks of it as something they're attached to. I had this experience once when traveling on an airplane. It was a storm was coming in, and the pilot announced, we're going to pull away from the gate, even though we were going to have to sit on the whatever you call that, tarmac for a bit. But yeah, I'm doing that because otherwise we'll have to wait a whole bunch of time just to get our spot in line for takeoff. So keep your seatbelts on, but we're not going to take off yet. So we went out on the tarmac, waiting for whatever it was, the storm to blow over. And I was in a window seat, and next to me was a Jewish man, and next to him was his wife. And so because we hadn't taken off yet, this was those times you could take the phone out of the back of the seat, and he's calling his friend, this stock, that stock, the other stock, buy some of this and sell some of that. As soon as the plane landed, how did it go? So what was he thinking of during the flight? It's not wrong, but it's an indication of what you're attached to is where your mind goes. For those who are constantly thinking Krishna, it's possible when there's some attachment. And how is it possible unless there's some detachment from the other stuff? Because if there's attachment, going back a few verses, if there's attachment to other stuff, then there's the procedure that you offer the results of that stuff. Your involvement with things of this world in sacrifice to Vishnu, karma yoga. And gradually it becomes nishkam karma yoga, and then gradually that becomes bhakti, especially through devotee association, it becomes bhakti. That's the topic of chapter 9. And one who has become such a devotee, declare it boldly. Arjuna, my devotee will never perish. And I will, Kshipram Bhavati Dharmam, I'll quickly restore his situation. Personally. Personally. Personally? Krishna does? There's a very nice, I'll end with a little story. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, I preserve, for those who are constantly devoted to me, I preserve what they have and carry what they lack. You know that verse? Some of you know the verse. For those who are constantly devoted to me and worship me with faith, I personally preserve what they have and carry what they lack. So there's a story that Prabhupada has told a few times that there was a commentator on Bhagavad Gita that lived in Puri. He had a nice name. Arjuna Acharya was his name. So when he got to that verse, he was disturbed. Because he was saying, how can a devotee take things from Krishna? We were meant to serve Krishna. How can you take things from Krishna? He didn't like it. His heart was troubled. So what did he do? He took his marking instrument and put scratch marks through the verse. And then went to take his midday bath. Shortly after he left, these two boys, one very dark-colored, one very light-colored, came to the door and said, Mataji, here are some items that you can prepare and offer to your deity. Where'd you get them? Your husband gave them to us. He said, well, I've never seen fruits and vegetables of this quality. Where did he get them? He said, he just gave them to us. We're going to have to go now. She said, well, he's going to come back shortly, and I'm sure he'll be very pleased to see you. He said, oh no, if he's coming back shortly, we're leaving right now. He beat us. She said, what? My husband beat you? And they lifted their shirts and showed the beat marks on their back. Said, we're leaving right now. So his wife was very surprised, because my husband, very gentle, he would never do something like that. And when he came back from his midday bath, he showed him the articles and told the whole story. And then said, did you beat these boys? And, he said, what did they look like? Well, one was very dark and one was very light-colored. Then he could understand what happened. And then he started crying and said, you're so fortunate, Krishna has shown himself to you. But I was such a fool. I didn't take Krishna's words honestly and directly. He personally preserves what we have and carries what we lack. Now, if one doesn't have faith, one doesn't think that. One thinks it's my activities that are providing what I lack and preserving what I have. That's covered consciousness. But devotional consciousness says, Krishna carries what we lack and preserves what we have. And we're just serving him. That's the devotional move. And one who thinks like that, back to this verse, if there's some slip, Krishna will correct it. Personally, he'll correct it. Would somebody be, smart, or some moralist might say, well, wait a minute, how can you accept service from such a person? And Krishna doesn't like that kind of attitude. Because I hold them very dear, that's why. I'm the purifying agent. I will purify them. I'll purify them because their thoughts are always with me. And therefore my thoughts are always with them. And I'm the purifying agent. I'll purify them. That's how it works. If it's not it's offensive, it's a mistake, and it's offensive to say, well, I guess it's okay. I can continue making mistakes, and it's quite okay because I'm trying to be a nice devotee. We don't feel that way. That's a wrong way to take what's being said. But if the purification does come, and it's quick, Chipram Bhavati Dharma, very quickly, because Krishna is the purifying agent. Why? Because of the devotion that one has towards him, which goes back to the other verse. I hold such a person very dear to me. I'm partial to them. I'm neutral to everybody and partial to my devotee because they're partial to me. We just have to become partial to Krishna and devoted to him and attached to him, and we'll be delivered. Swift Dharmatma. Okay, so there's our Bhagavad Gita passage. 9.31 Bhagavad Gita. You attend the Friday class? This discussion that he has on Friday? Yes? You have Satya Sar conducts a Friday Bhagavad Gita application class, right? Does he attend? Your father attends. Okay, but that's fine. That's attending. I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. You don't have to answer for him. You attend. Sometimes you do. That's honest. Okay. Yes. I see. Okay. Because of school or? Yeah. But Friday, it's a little different than Monday through Thursday. Yeah. No, it's good to be honest. Good to be honest. The things that you can, and this is encouragement to attend, the things that you hear, and to whatever degree there's understanding, there's both, just hearing, but even further of understanding, then something that kind of sticks, kind of stays with you. Stays with you. Good habits have a tendency, there's not a guarantee, but good habits have a tendency to stay with you. And transcendental knowledge has a way it stays with you. Even, as you grow and mature and get involved with other people doing other stuff and things like that, it stays with you. Understandings and values stay with you. So it's good if you can attend. If you can. Any comments or questions? Yeah. We're going to give you a microphone so people that are remote can hear you.
So in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna finishes his last word on the 18th chapter, why don't they continue on with going until like the 19th or the 20th chapter?
Why? What you understand? Oh, you want 19 chapters? Yeah. Well, because he concludes with 18 chapters, but if you want to hear something further, and he does say some things further, you can go to Bhagavad Gita. What's Bhagavad Gita? As Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, Krishna speaks to Uddhava. Who's Uddhava? Uddhava is his friend. as Arjuna is his friend. Arjuna is Krishna's cousin, right?
Yep.
And Uddhava is Krishna's cousin. Arjuna is Krishna's cousin because Arjuna's mother, Kunti, and Krishna's father, Vasudeva, they're brother and sister. And Uddhava's father and Krishna's father are brothers. So they're cousins. And there's a whole, not just chapter 19, it's 12, 13 chapters more in the Bhagavatam. If you're interested, you want it, go to it. Go chapter 7, canto 11, where it starts. I'm sure you have Bhagavatam set in your home.
Yeah.
No, it's a little, it's not different, but it's a little more elevated, it's a little more comprehensive, but it's nice.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
As you mentioned in the class that we should offer the results of our work to Krishna, being a housewife, how to offer the results of our work to Krishna, unlike men who work outside, use the Lakshmi in service for Krishna.
The principle doesn't change whether you're inside or outside. The question is how to, but how to doesn't change inside or outside. Just speaking subjectively, speaking for myself, I think that bhakti is easier than, like, what's karma yoga or offering results that's not bhakti or is a preliminary to bhakti as opposed to bhakti. It's easier for me to think of, like, okay, my existence is meant for Krishna's service, so here we go. And so you're a housewife, and you do your housewife thing. Just like, we're sitting here beginning the Bhagavad Gita class, and the housewife is bringing in the ingredients that are going to be used for later on when prasadam is taken and things like that. And so she's hearing the class, but she's doing her housewife duties. And, each of us are doing our whatever it is duty according to our position. And my answer to your question is, it doesn't change inside or outside the home. And I'm also saying it's easier for me personally to think of devotional service than to think simply karma yoga and give the result to Krishna. In one sense, to give the result to Krishna is a subset. It's part of bhakti. Yeah, it's part of bhakti. So just do bhakti. Do bhakti in the house or outside the house.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, so this verse says it's at the for a pure devotee, right? If we are not a pure devotee, is the statement still applicable, or is it, to what degree it is applicable? That is, that my devotee will never perish statement.
There's a sliding scale. It's not an either or. Either you're a pure devotee or you're not a pure devotee. If you're not a pure devotee, you're gonna get spanked if you do bad stuff. You're held responsible for your bad stuff. My understanding is that the correction, the principle doesn't change. Pure devotee, not pure devotee, yet. There's purification. It's still taking place for one who's not yet a pure devotee. But the steps and the procedures and the duration of time may be shorter or longer in a sliding scale. The principle that's involved is a principle of dedication to the service of Krishna, because that's the principle of bhakti at whatever the scale is. Answer your question?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
We've got a microphone for the online people. I can hear you, but they can't.
Okay. So what is bhakti and what is devotee?
Okay.
Like, I want to know that.
Okay. A devotee is one who does bhakti, so let's talk about bhakti. This one who does bhakti is a bhakta. Bhakti definition is the principal characteristic of bhakti is wanting to please Krishna. The Sanskrit is anukulyena krishnanushilanam. Shila means behavior. Anu means to follow. Anushilana means following. Following whom? Following those who anukulyena Krishna. Their intention, their heart, in their heart of hearts, they want to please Krishna. Anukulyena. And the object is Krishna. Anushilanam. So their behavior with their body, mind, and words, that's Shila. They're following those who have that standard. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. So I'll just go over it a few more times, because it's a definition of what bhakti is. In my heart of hearts, I'm not there yet, but in my heart of hearts, I want to come to the stage where my everything is pleasing to Krishna. I'm not there yet. I'm sometimes thinking other thing. But in my heart of hearts, that's there. And so I'm striving with the sadhana stage. I'm striving towards. That's the anu shilanam. You're following the path given by great souls and striving to come to that standard. I'm not there yet. So sadhana bhakti is part of bhakti, because sadhana will take you there if that's what's in your heart. So that's what bhakti is, and a bhakta is one who lives their life that way, cultivating that principle. Then there are things that are helpful and things that are detrimental. So we're concerned about the things that are helpful, and we're concerned about the things that are detrimental. Okay? So let's just take up, for example, because it's there in the Bhagavad Gita. For example, speech. That's an easy one. So there's harsh speech. And then there's speech where it doesn't agitate others. And I may not be there yet. I may kind of like get a little irritated and speak harshly sometimes. But I don't like it, because I know it's not pleasing to Krishna. But that's the mode of goodness is you do things because it's good and it's not bad. Bhakti is I do things because it's pleasing to Krishna. And things that are good are pleasing to Krishna. But I do it not because it's good. I do it because it's pleasing to Krishna. That's bhakti. And a bhakta is one who strives to improve the quality of their speech to be pleasing to Krishna, to attract the all-attractive Krishna. Although I don't have qualification, he's all-attractive. Let me try to please him by my speech. And that way I can control my tongue, at least the speaking part. And then, etc. And there, because I've said it 4 times, here's the 5th time. It's quite okay that I'm not there yet, because I'm accepted in principle. That's how I'd like my life to unfold. And I'm taking those things that are such as sadhu sangha. I'm taking sadhu sangha because it'll help me get there. And when I have sadhu sangha, I'm very careful to not be disrespectful, make offense. Even in situations like this, where there's some bad behavior, bad behavior, but you're a devotee, right? Because you're trying to be, so you're a devotee, you're a bhakta. And I see this mistake. And not only that, I see a really bad mistake. Sudurachara, that's the previous verse. And now how am I, how little old me, supposed to regard that person? Because it happens when we come together in devotee association. We start to see that they're less than perfect, these people. And I have this expectation they've got to be perfect people, and they're less than perfect. So beware, because they're on the path. Here's I'm over answering the question, but there was an exchange. Trying to recall. Yeah, a lady wrote a letter to Prabhupada. Swamiji, you're wonderful, this and that and the other thing. And then, but Swamiji, some of your followers, they don't represent you well. And, Then, but Swamiji, I really like reading your books, and, you're doing wonderful work to help lift the world. Prabhupada to the lady, thank you very much. It's all the mercy of Krishna. And as far as my disciples that don't represent me well, please regard them this way. They understand that they're not clean, and they're standing in the shower and they're trying to make themselves clean. Think of them that way. And again, thank you very much for all your kind words. But he knew, but he wanted to give us the cleansing process to become qualified bhaktas. And that then sadhana is to help us get there. We're not there yet. So don't criticize others and don't beat yourself up because you're not there yet. Just stay on the path of getting there in association of those who are very, very sincere about trying to get there. Then you're the bhakta category.
Two questions online.
I'm hoping there's more questions online. This is to get more questions, taking time answering the question.
I think there is a question follow-up to what she asked.
That's how it works.
A difference between Nishkama Karma Yoga versus Bhakti Yoga, as a follow-up to what Maharaj is saying.
But the person wants to know what's the distinction. Well, there's a few distinctions. Commonly, not always, persons that are engaged in Nishkam Karma Yoga, their interest is liberation. That is to say, they don't want bondage. So they still, the Sakam Karma Yoga is I still have desire. The Nishkam is I've lost that desire for, temporary worldliness. but I'm still like, really keen on, I want liberation. I don't want the bondage for my work, but I'm going to do stuff. I live in the world, and because I have a body, I'm going to do stuff. But I don't want bondage. Nishkam Karma Yoga. And Bhakti ramps it up a whole bunch. It's like, my existence is for the pleasure of Krishna. That's who I am. On the soul level. Not only I'm just a spiritual spark, part of Krishna, I'm meant for service to Krishna. That's who I am. That's Bhakti. But beyond an aspiration for liberation. It's just being who I am in the spiritual sense of who I really am. And with love, priti, purvakam.
Maharaj, how to enrich the association if we have friends that are not in Krishna consciousness but still very dear to us?
How to associate with others or increase association?
How to enrich the association?
Encourage?
Enrich.
Enter into? What's the word? How to?
Enrich.
Enrich. How to enrich association with others who are not yet bhaktas? That's the question. Well, it depends. And you find, one of the principles of those who are not yet devotees, but to enrich the association, is find out things they like, take an interest in the things that they like, provide resources for the things that they like, and Krishnaize all of that. And how do you Krishnaize? Well, it depends on you and them, and the thing that they have interest in. Take the time to find out what's important to them. Try to understand the other person from their perspective, their shoes, and then take interest in what they're interested in. And they're generally speaking, almost universally speaking, there's some Krishna-ized aspect of that which they're interested in. And so introduce them to the Krishna-ized thing that they're interested in. And the trajectory that their life is in is also important. And as I'm speaking this, I'm thinking of the program at Texas A&M. At the program at Texas A&M, the topic was the art of meditation, overcoming negative emotion. That was the topic. And at the end, there were at least 15 people that wanted a one-on-one conversation. So the one-on-one conversation was starting, what is their interest? My service to them was not telling them what I'm interested in and encouraging them or somehow getting them to accept what I'm interested in. Is find out what they're interested in. And then, here's a Krishna conscious connection for that thing which you're interested in. And there was a whole range of people that were interested in all kinds of different things. A bunch of them were interested in meditation because that was part of the topic. So how do I get started? Or another one was saying, for the past 3 years, I'm kind of intermittent. How do I stay with it? So find out what they're interested in. So another person, they read the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, an abridged version of it, for a year because somebody said that was good for them. And it was really good, but then when I stopped, it was back down again what to do. And so you find out what people are interested in. Someone else said, I'd been learning Ayurveda, and how do I decrease my pitta? So I said, I'll give you the Ayurvedic doctor's information. And, she studied under Vaidya Mishra, and he was really good. And, she'll give you a phone consultation. And, Anyway, he already has interest in the Vedas and Bhagavad Gita. So just give him resources that make the Krishna connection a little bit more. Let's see. Okay.
Another question. Does offenses are part of Sudurachar? I am thinking of some examples from scriptures which comes under the category of Sudurachar. Could you please share some?
You want some examples of Sudurachar?
Snehali.
Oh, stealing, murdering, stepping on, people. Kicking a dog.
Next question. Does the Jnana Yoga practitioners need to take renunciation, or is it a part of Bhakti Yoga as devotees also need to cultivate knowledge?
You're shaking your head, so am I.
So I think there are two parts to this question.
So break them.
Jnana Yoga practitioners need
Jnana.
to... Gyan.
Not Dhyana, but Jnana.
Jnana.
J.
Yes.
Okay.
Practitioners need to take renunciation or not?
Well, their path of cultivation of Gyan is a path of renunciation, detachment. It's not possible without it. It is part of Gyan Yoga is renunciation, detachment.
Right. Or is it a part of Bhakti Yoga?
Is what a part of Bhakti Yoga?
The renunciation part of Bhakti Yoga, as
Sure,
devotees also
it
need
is.
to cultivate
Sure.
knowledge.
Sure. But it's not the prerequisite. It happens because Bhakti is purifying. As one gets purified, one starts to want to know what are things I can do that will enhance Bhakti, what are things I can eliminate that will detract from Bhakti. Renunciation comes naturally. There may be a stage where one cultivates it, that's for sure, but, it comes naturally. Just a really nice example, and we'll end here. Srila Prabhupada started the Hare Krishna movement in America in the Lower East Side. And the Lower East Side is a place where it was counterculture hippies. And, they knew nothing about nothing, the culture of no culture. They were unclean and, they weren't disciplined. So he didn't give rules. He gave himself and the mantra and prasadam and Bhagavad Gita class. After months, one of the members said, "Swamiji, we're supposed to follow some rules." Prabhupada said, "Yes, I'll write something and put them on the bulletin board tomorrow." Then he established the 4 regular principles. But until then, it wasn't rule. It was just prasadam and hymn and Mahamantra and Bhagavad Gita class. I want to end. Okay? Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada Pujana.